So, ladies and gentlemen, first and foremost, I always like to start with the easiest, right? And the easiest in my book is finding the amplitude. Amplitude in this case is going to be the absolute value of your A, which is 3. Yes? Period is going to be 2 pi divided by B. There is a 1 in this case in front of the x. But remember, as I mentioned, guys, 1 is not by itself. 1 is being divided by 2. So in reality, you have 2 pi divided by 1/2. Does everybody see that? So multiply by your reciprocal. 4 pi. To find our x scale, now you're just going to take your period divided by 4. So we have 4 pi divided by 4. Pi. Right? To find our phase shift, which I called your initial period start. All we do is take whatever's inside our parentheses and set it equal to 0. So I have x over 2 equals 0. Well, I multiply by 2 on both sides, and I get x equals 0. Then my vertical translation is going to be what I'm adding or subtracting, right? Am I shifting this up at all? So you can just say none, or not available, or NA, not applicable. OK? Now, I ask you guys to graph this. So what I ask you guys to do is always graph stating from the initial period. You could do 2 periods to the right, or you could do 1 period to the right and 1 period to the left. It really does not matter which way you like to do it. But since there's no phase shift here, I think it's pretty nice just to we'll just go 2 periods to the right. So all we're simply doing, guys, is graphing it just like the graph looks like in the parent graph. We know what the graph looks like. The graph looks like that, right? You should know at least what this graph looks like. We know that it has a period of 2 pi. It goes up to 1. It goes down to -1. It crosses at pi. It has an x scale at pi halves and a low point at 3 pi halves. OK? As I told you guys from the beginning, you should know what the parent graph of sine looks like. You should know that the parent graph, it starts at 0 and then goes up to its max. The difference is now we have a different amplitude, right? The amplitude is now 3. I'm not trying to compare this graph to this, so I'm just going to use totally different scaling. Now, instead of the graph going up to 1 and down to -1, the graph goes up to 3, down to -3. Instead of the graph completing one cycle in 2 pi, it completes the cycle in 4 pi. Instead of the scaling between each and every important point, here it's pi halves. This one has an x scale of pi. So pi, 2 pi, 3 pi, 4 pi, 5 pi, 6 pi.
You wrote 2 4 pi.
Oh, I was wondering. I'm like, that's bad counting. 5 pi, 6 pi, 7 pi. Does everybody see how I literally just created my graph but just made it different with this one? Yes? Now, the same process goes. OK? You start for sine, at least at the initial period, since we're starting at the same point, it's going to start at 0, right? If this is my y-axis, that's 0, right? So my x scale, or my phase shift, starts at 0. So the initial period of sine starts down here, starts at the x-intercept, 0. Then it goes up to my maximum. However, there's something you guys need to pay attention to. What does that tell us again? Instead of it going up, it now is being reflected down. So instead of drawing the graph like this, it's now going to go down. So everything now with this graph is being done, well, all you guys need to do is listen, the points are going to be exactly the same. Do you guys see how the x-intercepts are the same? The only difference is instead of it going up, it now goes down. Then crosses. Then goes up, and then ends at 4 pi. Then it goes back down again to 3. Oops, 3, cross, max, down. Is everybody OK with me on that? Yes? No? A couple things I want you guys to understand. First of all, let's just figure out some information on this as well. Okay? What is the domain for this? Anybody? Yes, Amani?
Negative infinity to infinity.
Good. Roman, what's the range? -3 to +3. You guys see the difference on why these are contained, why there's not? Yes?
Sure.
You guys, and so therefore, if that's our range, you guys understand that this is bounded, right? It's bounded at 3, bounded at -3, right? This is, we have an absolute max of 3, an absolute minimum of -3, right? Remember how like hard this was for you guys to like remember for your test, but it's like the same. I mean, pretty simple information. What about, can anybody give me an interval where the graph is decreasing? Anybody just want to give me an interval where the graph is decreasing? Yes, Tyler. Where is an interval where the graph is decreasing?
-3, sorry, +3 to -3.
Now remember, when you're writing the interval, we only want to be talking about the x values of the interval. So we're only talking about, yes, we know the graph is decreasing by the y values. So we want to write the interval as far as the x values. So what x values, what input values is the graph decreasing?
4 pi to 5 pi.
4 pi to 5 pi. Well, and you could also even go a little bit farther than that. You could also say from 3 pi to 5 pi. The graph is decreasing. Correct? Yes? And I should have said increasing. That probably would have been better. All right. Well, we'll get to that a little bit later. And then, actually, we can go through increasing. So you could say 5 pi to 7 pi, right? Now, is it always going to be increasing 5 pi, 7 pi? Do you guys see how these two values are the same as well? What's the distance between these two? A period, right? It's a period. You guys see that? It's just another period. So you could just keep on adding 4 pi in this example to find all of the values that it's increasing. So in this case, I don't want to get too crazy with you, but you could do, if I said all the values, it would be 4 pi n, comma, 7 pi plus 4 pi n. If I said, what are all the values? N represents any number. N can be 1. So if I add, here's my increasing value. If I added plus 4 pi, that would just tell me what the next one is. If n was 2, I'd be adding 2 pi. That's the next increasing, right? You don't need to worry about this if it doesn't make sense to you, but I wanted to present it to those of you that would be like, OK, that makes sense. If it doesn't make sense, we're going to be doing stuff similar to this later on. So don't worry about it right now. But I just thought it would be a good opportunity to present that. Is everybody OK with this? At least with the domain of range, increasing, decreasing? Just a reminder of stuff. All right, so let's get to the next stuff. OK.